The kitchen timer beeped 3 times, sharp and insistent. Eliza Harmon wiped her palms on her jeans and pulled out the tray of lemon squares, Parker's favorite. The sweet tart scent filled her nostrils as she set them on the cooling rack. She'd been baking all morning, a nervous habit she couldn't shake ever since that strange call from Vivian last night. "I haven't seen you in forever, Liz. Come by tomorrow?" "I've been renovating the guest room, and I need your eye. You always know exactly what works." It was odd, considering they'd had coffee just last week. Odder still that Viv hadn't mentioned any renovation then. But that was Vivian. Impulsive, always changing something. That's why they'd been best friends since college. Where Eliza planned, Vivian created chaos, and somehow they balanced each other perfectly. Eliza checked her phone. No messages from Parker. He was probably still caught up in meetings. Her husband's recent promotion meant longer hours. But she'd gotten used to the working late texts. She cut the lemon squares with careful precision, arranging them in the vintage tin that had belonged to her mother. The house was quiet, too quiet. Eliza turned on a podcast to fill the silence, but found herself unable to focus on the host's cheerful banter about true crime. Her phone buzzed. "Going to be late tonight." "Don't wait up." "Love you, Parker." Always so considerate, even in his absence. She texted back quickly. "No problem. I'm heading to Viv's for a bit anyway. See you tomorrow." "Love you too." Something made her pause before adding that final line. A hesitation she couldn't explain. But she typed it anyway because it was true. 8 years of marriage, and despite the recent distance, she did love him. Eliza gathered her purse and the tin of lemon squares. As she reversed out of the driveway, she caught a glimpse of herself in the rearview mirror. Her dark hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, minimal makeup. The small worry line between her brows that hadn't been there a year ago. She didn't know why she felt so uneasy. It was just Viv, after all. Her oldest friend. The woman who'd held her hair back at college parties, who'd been her maid of honor, who knew all her secrets, almost all of them. Anyway, Eliza turned up the music and headed across town, unaware that in 20 minutes, her entire world would shatter. Vivian's house sat at the end of a tree-lined street, a charming craftsman with a wide porch and blue shutters that Eliza had helped pick out 3 years ago when Viv bought the place after her divorce. As Eliza pulled into the driveway, she noted Vivian's red Audi parked under the carport. But there was another car there too. A silver Lexus. Parker's Lexus. Eliza's hands tightened on the steering wheel. There had to be an explanation. Parker and Vivian knew each other, of course. Maybe he'd stopped by to drop something off. Maybe he was helping with whatever renovation project Vivian had mentioned. But why hadn't he said anything in his text? She sat in her car for a long moment, the engine idling. Her heartbeat quickened as scenarios flashed through her mind, innocent explanations colliding with darker possibilities she didn't want to acknowledge. "This is stupid," she muttered to herself. "Just go in." Eliza grabbed the tin of lemon squares and approached the front door. She raised her hand to knock, then paused. She and Vivian had never stood on ceremony. For years, they'd walked into each other's homes unannounced, a practice that had continued even after Eliza married Parker and moved across town. She tried the handle. "It turned easily, Viv?" Eliza called out as she stepped inside. The entryway was cool and dim, scented with the vanilla candles Vivian always burned. No answer. "Vivian, it's me." The house felt still but not empty. Eliza heard a faint sound from upstairs. Voices, maybe? She set the tin down on the entryway table and moved toward the staircase. Each step felt heavier than the last. By the time she reached the landing, her chest was tight with dread. "Viv?" she called again, softer now. The guest bedroom door was closed. Eliza approached it slowly, her footsteps muffled by the plush hallway carpet. She could definitely hear voices now, low murmurs punctuated by a laugh that was unmistakably Vivian's, and then, clearer, "We can't keep doing this." Parker's voice. Eliza froze, her hand inches from the doorknob. In that moment, she had a choice. Turn around, pretend she hadn't heard, maintain the fragile illusion of her life. Or open the door and face whatever truth waited on the other side. She thought of the lemon squares downstairs, of the texts, of the late nights and the growing distance between them, of how Vivian had been acting strange for months now, canceling plans, seeming distracted when they did meet. Eliza turned the knob and pushed the door open. The scene unfolded like a nightmare in slow motion. Vivian sitting on the edge of the bed, her blouse half unbuttoned. Parker standing by the window, his tie loosened, his face flushed. Both of them turning toward her with identical expressions of shock. And the room, not under renovation at all. Just the same guest room it had always been, with its pale blue walls that Eliza herself had helped paint, the bedspread rumpled, a bottle of wine and 2 glasses on the nightstand. Time stretched like taffy. "Nobody moved, Liz," Vivian finally breathed, her voice barely audible. Parker took a step forward, his hand outstretched. "Eliza, I can explain." "Can you?" The words felt like they came from someone else. Eliza's voice was steady, much steadier than she felt. "Please, explain why my husband is in my best friend's bedroom on a Tuesday afternoon when he's supposed to be at work." The silence that followed was deafening. "How long?" Eliza asked, her voice echoing in the stillness of Vivian's guest room. Neither of them answered. "How long?" Parker ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture she'd once found endearing. "Eliza, please, let's talk about this at home." "No." The word came out sharp, definitive. "You don't get to dictate the terms anymore. How long have you been sleeping with my best friend?" Vivian stood up, her fingers fumbling with her blouse buttons. "Liz, it's not what you think." A laugh escaped Eliza's throat, harsh, humorless. "Really? That's what you're going with? The oldest line in the book?" 6 months, Parker said quietly. The admission hit Eliza like a physical blow. 6 months. Half a year of lies, of working late and conference weekends, of Vivian asking about her marriage with concerned eyes, offering advice, listening sympathetically. 6 months, she repeated, the words bitter on her tongue. "So when I confided in you about our marriage problems," she looked at Vivian, "you were already sleeping with him?" Vivian's face crumpled. "I never meant for this to happen, Liz. We just... don't." Eliza held up a hand. "Don't you dare try to justify this!" Parker moved toward her, his expression pleading. "Baby, please. I know I've made a terrible mistake, but I love you. We can work through this." The familiar endearment ignited something in Eliza, a blazing anger that burned through the shock. "You love me? Is that why you've been lying to my face for half a year? Is that why you're in her bedroom right now?" "It was a mistake," he repeated, reaching for her arm. Eliza recoiled from his touch. "A mistake is forgetting to pay the electric bill, Parker. A mistake is burning dinner. This," she gestured between them, "this is a choice. A series of choices. Every time you texted me that you were working late. Every time you kissed me knowing you'd been with her. Eliza," Vivian started. "And you." Eliza turned to face her oldest friend, the woman who had stood beside her at her wedding, who had held her hand at her father's funeral. "You're worse than he is. I trusted you with everything." Tears streamed down Vivian's face. I know, and I'm so sorry. I hate myself for this." Not enough to stop, apparently. Eliza's voice was cold. She looked around the room, at the wine glasses, at the bed. "You invited me here today. Why? Were you planning to tell me? Or was this some sick game?" Vivian and Parker exchanged a glance that spoke volumes. "Oh my God." Realization dawned on Eliza, twisting her insides. "You were going to tell me you're in love. That's it, isn't it? You wanted to come clean because this isn't just an affair. You're planning a future together." The silence confirmed her suspicions. "Eliza," Parker said softly, "we never wanted to hurt you." A strangled laugh escaped her. "Well, you failed spectacularly at that." She backed toward the door, suddenly desperate for air. The walls seemed to be closing in, the familiar scent of Vivian's house now suffocating. "I'm leaving," she said, "and I don't want either of you to follow me." "Where are you going?" Parker asked, panic creeping into his voice. That's no longer your concern? Eliza's hand found the doorframe, steadying herself. I'll be at the house tomorrow at noon to pick up some things. Make sure you're not there. Liz, please, Vivian cried, taking a step forward. Can we just talk about this? I know we've hurt you terribly, but you're my best friend. No. Eliza cut her off. I was your best friend. Now I'm just the wife you betrayed. With that, she turned and walked out, her steps quickening as she descended the stairs. She grabbed her purse from the entryway table, but left the tin of lemon squares sitting there. A small, mundane detail that somehow broke her heart all over again. Outside, the afternoon sun was blindingly bright. Eliza fumbled for her sunglasses, her hands shaking as she slid behind the wheel of her car. She could hear Parker calling her name from the front door, but she didn't look back as she pulled away. 2 blocks from Vivian's house, she pulled over, unable to see through her tears. Her phone buzzed repeatedly, texts and calls from both of them. She turned it off and dropped it into her purse. For the first time in her adult life, Eliza was completely alone. The 2 people she trusted most in the world had shattered everything she believed about her life, and now she had to decide what to do with the pieces. The motel room was basic but clean. Neutral beige walls, a queen-sized bed with a floral comforter, and a small desk by the window. Eliza sat cross-legged on the bed, surrounded by the contents of the go-bag she'd packed months ago. Not because she'd suspected Parker of cheating, but because she'd been considering leaving him for reasons she couldn't fully articulate. A persistent uneasiness, a growing distance, the feeling that she was performing a role rather than living her life. Now, at least, she had clarity. Her phone, which she'd finally turned back on, showed 37 missed calls and 22 text messages. Most from Parker, several from Vivian. She hadn't read any of them. Instead, she'd called her sister in Boston, explained the situation in a voice that sounded strangely composed, and asked if she could stay with her for a while. Madeline had immediately agreed, offering to book her a flight for the following evening. You should see your face, Eliza told her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Her eyes were puffy, her skin blotchy from crying. This is what betrayal looks like. She splashed cold water on her face and took a deep breath. 12 hours had passed since she'd walked into Vivian's guest room. 12 hours of cycling through rage, devastation, and a strange, detached numbness. Now it was time to face them. At precisely noon the next day, Eliza pulled up to the house she'd shared with Parker for the last 6 years. Her house, technically, inherited from her grandmother, though Parker had insisted on paying for renovations, saying it made him feel like it was truly their home together. Both Parker's Lexus and Vivian's Audi were parked in the driveway. Of course they were together. They probably spent the night consoling each other, telling themselves they'd done the right thing by planning to confess, that eventually Eliza would understand, forgive, move on. She wouldn't. Eliza squared her shoulders and walked to the front door. She still had her key, but she rang the doorbell anyway, a small assertion that this was no longer her home, not in the ways that mattered. Parker opened the door almost immediately. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, wearing the same clothes from yesterday. Eliza, he breathed, relief evident in his voice. Thank God. We've been so worried. I said I'd be here at noon, she replied coolly, stepping past him into the entryway. I'm exactly on time. Vivian stood in the living room, her arms wrapped around herself. She'd clearly been crying, her makeup-free face puffy and red. Liz, don't call me that, Eliza interrupted. Only my friends call me Liz. Vivian flinched as if she'd been slapped. Parker closed the front door and moved to stand beside Vivian, a united front against her. The symbolism wasn't lost on Eliza. Can we talk? He asked. Please? There are things we need to explain. I think I understand perfectly, Eliza said, setting her purse down on the console table. But sure, let's talk. You can start by telling me when exactly you fell in love with my best friend. The bluntness of the question seemed to catch Parker off guard. He glanced at Vivian, who looked at the floor. It wasn't planned, he said finally. We never meant for any of this to happen. Yet it did happen, Eliza pointed out. Repeatedly, for 6 months. Eliza, Vivian spoke up, her voice trembling. I know you hate us right now, and you have every right to, but we really were going to tell you. That's why I asked you to come over yesterday. We couldn't keep living this lie. How considerate of you, Eliza said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. And were you planning to tell me before or after I found you half undressed in your bedroom? Vivian had the decency to look ashamed. That wasn't supposed to happen. Parker came over early to talk about how we should approach it, and things just escalated. They have a way of doing that, apparently. Eliza turned to Parker. Did our marriage mean anything to you at all? Or was it all a lie? Of course it meant something, he said, his voice breaking. Eliza, I loved you. I still love you. No. She shook her head firmly. You don't get to say that. You don't get to stand there with her and tell me you love me. It's possible to love 2 people at once, he argued, a flash of defiance crossing his features. Eliza laughed, the sound brittle. Is that what you've been telling yourself to justify this? That your heart is just so big it couldn't be contained by one relationship? You haven't been happy either, Vivian said quietly. You've told me that yourself, multiple times. The betrayal of those confidences hit Eliza anew. So that makes it okay? Because I confided in my best friend about normal marriage struggles, that gave you permission to sleep with my husband? No, Vivian said quickly. That's not what I meant. You just what? Eliza demanded. Thought you'd help yourself to my life? The way you always have, Viv. Vivian's eyes widened with hurt. What are you talking about? You've always wanted what I have. In college, it was my major. Then my apartment. Then the job at the gallery. And now my husband. Eliza's voice shook with anger. You've always been so supportive, so interested in my life. Was it because you were taking notes for your own? That's not fair, Vivian protested. I've never been jealous of you. Maybe not consciously, Eliza conceded. But here we are. Parker stepped forward. Eliza, this isn't about you. What happened between Vivian and me? Oh, spare me, she cut him off. Of course it's about me. I'm the one you betrayed. I'm the one you lied to. I'm the one who built a life with you that apparently meant so little you could throw it away for an affair. It's not just an affair, he said, his voice low. I love her. The words hung in the air, final and devastating. Eliza felt something shift inside her, the last thread of hope that this was all a terrible mistake, that they could somehow find their way back from this, snapped cleanly. How convenient for you both, she said after a moment. Well, I won't stand in your way. I've already called a lawyer. I'll be filing for divorce immediately. Parker paled. Eliza, don't you think we should at least try counseling? We've been together for 8 years. And you've been cheating for 6 months, she reminded him. With my best friend. Some things can't be fixed, Parker. She turned to Vivian. You know what hurts the most? Not that you wanted him. It's that you didn't value our friendship enough to stay away. 20 years of friendship, Viv. That should have meant something. Tears spilled down Vivian's cheeks. It did. It does. I hate myself for hurting you. Not enough to make different choices, Eliza said softly. I trusted you with everything. My fears, my insecurities, my marriage, and you used all of it against me. I never meant to. Stop saying that. Eliza's composure finally cracked. Stop hiding behind intentions. You both made choices, hundreds of them. Every secret text, every lie, every time you were together behind my back. Those were choices. And now you have to live with the consequences, She took a deep, steadying breath. I'm going upstairs to pack some things. I'd appreciate it if you both left me alone while I do that. Parker looked like he wanted to argue, but Vivian placed a hand on his arm and nodded. Of course, we'll be in the kitchen. Eliza watched them walk away together, their movements already synchronized in the casual intimacy of lovers. It was surreal, seeing them like this. The two people she'd trusted most in the world, now strangers to her. Upstairs, in the bedroom she'd shared with Parker, Eliza moved methodically, packing clothes, jewelry, and personal items. She paused at her dresser, where a framed photo of her and Vivian stood, both of them laughing at Eliza's 30th birthday party last year. She placed it face down in the drawer. In the closet, she found one of Parker's shirts mixed in with her things. She held it for a moment, remembering how she used to steal his clothes, how he would pretend to be annoyed but secretly loved it. She dropped the shirt on the floor. When she came back downstairs, pulling her suitcase behind her, Parker and Vivian were sitting at the kitchen island, their heads close together in conversation. They sprang apart when they saw her. I've taken what I need for now, Eliza said. I'll arrange to get the rest later. Where are you going? Parker asked, his voice strained. I'm staying with Madeline for a while. My flight leaves this evening. Boston? His eyebrows rose. For how long? I don't know, she admitted. As long as it takes, I guess. Takes for what? Vivian asked. Eliza met her gaze. To forget that my husband and best friend destroyed my life. Eliza, please, Parker began, but she cut him off. I left my engagement and wedding rings on the dresser, she told him. The house is still in my name, but I don't want it anymore. Too many memories. You can buy me out or we can sell it. My lawyer will be in touch, she turned to Vivian. You should know that everyone will find out what you did. I'm not going to protect either of you by keeping quiet. Vivian nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand. Eliza looked between them, these two people who had been her whole world. There was so much more she wanted to say. Accusations, questions, all the hurt and rage still churning inside her. But suddenly she was exhausted. I hope you'll be very happy together, she said, and was surprised to find she meant it. Not because she forgave them, but because their happiness would mean this hadn't all been for nothing. That the destruction of her life had at least served some purpose. Parker stepped forward. Eliza, I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't change anything, but I need you to know that. She looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since discovering the affair. The man she'd planned to grow old with. The man she'd trusted with her heart, her body, her future. You know, she said softly, the worst part is that I still love you. Even now, knowing what you've done, there's a part of me that loves you. And I hate that. I hate that I can't just turn it off like you did. I didn't turn it off, he insisted. I never stopped loving you. Eliza shook her head. If that's true, it's even worse. She grabbed her purse and the handle of her suitcase. Goodbye, Parker. Goodbye, Vivian. And without waiting for their response, she walked out the front door, closing it firmly behind her. 6 months later. The Boston Public Garden was alive with early spring, cherry blossoms drifting like pale confetti, daffodils nodding in the gentle breeze, the swan boats making their first appearances on the lagoon. Eliza sat on a bench, sketchbook open on her lap, charcoal pencil moving in swift, sure strokes. She'd been drawing again, something she'd abandoned years ago when the gallery job and then marriage had consumed her time. Now, in this new life she was building, piece by careful piece, art had returned to her like an old friend. Her phone buzzed with a text from Madeline. Don't forget, dinner at 7. Jamie's making that pasta you like. Eliza smiled and texted back. Wouldn't miss it. Need me to bring anything? Just yourself. And maybe that lemon tart from the bakery if you're feeling generous. The mention of lemon desserts no longer triggered the wave of pain it once had. Progress, her therapist would say. She returned to her drawing, a study of the willows by the water, when a shadow fell across the page. Eliza? She looked up, squinting against the sun. For a moment, she didn't recognize the woman standing before her. Shorter hair, different style of clothes. Then it clicked. Vivian. Neither spoke for a long moment. Vivian shifted her weight from one foot to the other, clutching the strap of her purse. "I didn't know you were in Boston," she finally said. "I live here now," Eliza replied, closing her sketchbook. "What are you doing here?" "Conference. Marketing symposium at the Marriott." Vivian gestured vaguely toward Boylston Street. "I was just taking a walk during the lunch break and—" "Here you are." Here she was indeed. Eliza studied her former friend's face, the familiar features now slightly altered by what looked like significant weight loss and new lines around her eyes. "How have you been?" Vivian asked, her voice tentative. Eliza considered the question. 6 months ago, she might have lashed out, might have told Vivian exactly how she'd been. Devastated, lost, forced to rebuild a life that had been shattered by betrayal. But now, sitting in the spring sunshine, she found those emotions had dulled to a manageable ache. "I'm okay," she said simply. "Getting better." Vivian nodded. "You look good. Really good, actually. Thanks." Eliza paused. "How's Parker?" A flicker of something, discomfort, regret, crossed Vivian's face. "He's fine. We're fine." "You're still together, then?" "Yes." Vivian twisted her fingers together. "We moved in together 3 months ago, after the house sold." Eliza had known this, of course. Her lawyer had handled the sale, and her name had been on all the paperwork. Still, hearing it confirmed sent a small ripple of pain through her. "I'm glad," she said, and was surprised to find it wasn't entirely a lie. That at least something came out of all this. "Eliza," Vivian began, then stopped. "I don't know what to say. I'm sorry feels so inadequate." "It is," Eliza agreed. "But I appreciate it nonetheless." Vivian sat down on the bench beside her, leaving a careful distance between them. "I've thought about you every day. Wondered how you were, if you were okay. You could have called? Would you have answered?" Eliza considered this. "Probably not." They sat in silence for a moment, watching a young family feed the ducks by the water's edge. A father lifting his toddler to see better. A mother laughing at their excitement. "I miss you," Vivian said softly. "I know I have no right to say that, but it's true." "I miss my best friend." Eliza turned to look at her. "I'm not that person anymore, Viv. The woman who was your best friend. She doesn't exist now." "Because of what I did," Vivian acknowledged, her voice thick with tears. "Because of what you both did," Eliza corrected, "and because of what I've done since. The choices I've made to heal, to move forward." "I understand." Vivian wiped at her eyes. "For what it's worth, I really am sorry. Not just for the affair, but for betraying your friendship. For the way we handled everything." Eliza nodded, accepting the apology without offering forgiveness. She wasn't ready for that, might never be. "Are you happy?" she asked after a moment. "With Parker?" Vivian looked down at her hands. "Sometimes. It's complicated. The way we started, it casts a long shadow. I can imagine." "What about you?" Vivian asked. "Are you happy here?" Eliza considered the question seriously. "I'm getting there. I have a job at a small gallery in Cambridge. I'm drawing again. Madeline and her husband have been amazing. They've given me space to figure things out." "And is there anyone new, I mean?" A small smile crossed Eliza's face. "There might be. It's early days yet." Vivian nodded, her expression a complicated mix of emotions. "You deserve to be happy, Liz. You always did." The old nickname hung in the air between them, a reminder of what they'd once been to each other. Eliza stood up, tucking her sketchbook into her bag. "I should go. I have a class to teach this afternoon." Vivian rose as well. "Of course. I'm glad I ran into you, though. Are you?" Eliza asked, genuinely curious. "Yes." Vivian met her gaze directly. "Even if it's just to see that you're okay, that you're building a life without us." Eliza thought about that, about the strange, painful journey that had led her here, to this garden, to this moment. About the betrayal that had forced her to confront the cracks in her marriage that had existed long before Vivian entered the picture. About the strength she'd found in herself when everything else had fallen away. "You know," she said, "for a long time I thought what you and Parker did destroyed me. But I've realized something important. I'm not broken. Changed, yes. Scarred, definitely. But not broken. I never thought you were," Vivian said softly. Eliza shouldered her bag. "Goodbye, Vivian." "Goodbye, Eliza." Vivian hesitated, then added, "Maybe someday." "Maybe," Eliza cut her off gently. "But not today." She walked away through the dappled sunlight, past the swan boats and the cherry blossoms, toward the exit that would take her to the T station and back to Cambridge. Back to the life she was creating for herself, one careful step at a time. Her phone buzzed again. A text from David, the soft-spoken art history professor she'd been seeing for the past month. "Still on for coffee tomorrow?" Eliza smiled and typed her response. "Absolutely. Looking forward to it." As she reached the garden gates, she paused and looked back. Vivian still stood by the bench, watching her. Eliza raised her hand in a small wave. Not forgiveness, not friendship, but acknowledgement. Of what they'd been to each other. Of the pain they'd caused. Of the future stretching ahead for both of them. Separate but forever connected by what had happened. Vivian waved back, a sad smile on her face. Then Eliza turned away. Stepping through the gates and onto the bustling Boston sidewalk, joining the flow of people moving purposefully toward their various destinations. She took a deep breath of spring air and felt, for the first time in a long while, truly free. Not from the pain. That would always be part of her story now. But free to write the next chapters herself, on her own terms. Free to discover who she was beyond the betrayal that had nearly defined her. Free to visit, but not to stay, in the landscape of her past.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.